and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation, the Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. And welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites, to yet another exciting episode, another whole new year of the Vinny Eastwood Show. 17 years old now. It's not quite legal. My very special guest is Billy TK from the Billy TK Report, I guess. He can't hear me. Now he can hear me. All right, Billy, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, always good to be with you. Happy 2025 to everybody as much as possible.
Yes, as much as was possible. I did this thing at a festival one time. The music came down and these singing bowls and the sounds of tuis flying to and fro and waterfalls and stuff like that, and we got taken on this sort of guided meditation. And I turned to my mate Jackson afterwards and I said, "Did that just happen to you too?" And I described it to him, and he's like, "That's exactly what happened." And so this is the New Year's kind of tradition as far as I'm concerned. Think about creating a little whirlpool on one side of you that sucks in all that bad negative energy from the year. And then another whirlpool opens up on the other side of you that's full of all this hope and perspective looking forward to the brand new year. And then have those two whirlpools turn into waves, crash into each other and freeze, and then smash into a billion pieces of glittering mirror that poof into golden dust, and then just release it. Welcome to 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Billy. You know, it's haven't seen you since last year, mate. You know that people use that line, and it's just so freaking lame and annoying because everybody does it and stuff like that, and that's me to a T. So anyway, Billy, it's been a rip-roaring start to the new year. I've had a look over the feeds and things of that nature for a little bit, and there's a lot of things already happening this year. What is it, like the 13th in New Zealand today, 12th in the United States. So what has actually been happening so far this year that's got everybody in such an uproar in so many different directions?
It depends how. That's a broad question, because it depends how deep your observational reach goes to understand what's happening at the moment. If it's only superficial, you're going to only think that it's the Donald Trump election and victory and the fact that he takes office next week. If you think it's all about that and the fires in LA, and the fact that they're talking about, bird flu and things like that, if you're limited to that, then you're missing out on, multiple layers underneath that, because what you can see is always only the top of the iceberg, right? And so that's a really deep question and broad, hard to answer. But for me, I'm seeing multiple concurrent activities, some that I believe are distractionary, some I believe are setting us up for nefarious activities to be rolled out across the globe. Some are domestic, some are, of course, a major risk to global society and well-being. And in that respect, I'm talking about how very, very, very close we are to World War III. People don't understand how close we have been to World War III with Russia. And Russia is not the antagonist in this. It's not them at all. It's been NATO. It's been the US that have been pushing this envelope to the point where you have a Rear Admiral Buchanan from Stratcom military command in the US military, talking about limited scale nuclear conflict with Russia and how they're prepared for it and they're going to win. No one's going to win any nuclear conflict. And limited, is there going to be such a thing as limited when Putin sees, 50 nuclear or whatever it is, let's say 3 nuclear weapons heading his way? Is he really going to give a toss about moderating his reply? I don't know. I think it's a deep and dangerous consideration or lack of consideration that the US is applying to its stance with Russia, which now also includes its sponsorship of the occupation of Syria, ending the traditional regime that had been in there, where Syria had been fighting for its life under Assad. And so you've got Russia, tickling the Ukrainian issue as well. They're dealing with the West on that. They're being threatened with nuclear conflict there. They're being threatened via their allies in the Middle East. So we're very, very close to World War III right now, and people don't know how close we are. The UAPs, of course, in the United States, that hasn't slowed down. In my mind, they're setting us up for some sort of false flag operation. Are they trying to do concurrent activity like spraying airborne viruses or diseases in the air, which seems to be the explanation for the mysterious fog that has been happening in both the UK and in the US? Is that related to these drones? People are saying maybe, yes, maybe. But one thing for me that it represents between the fog, the drones, is that we're being psychologically conditioned to react to something that's not yet appeared. Of course, there's always the fast encroachment of the digital global society that we're about to go in. That's so close, it's not even funny. The Global Pact, we'll see to that. The Global Pact that Winston Peters allowed us to go into will allow us to do that. New Zealand is getting further ensconced and entrenched into global pacts, into treaties, etc., including, of course, NATO. Why would a South Pacific nation in peacetime want to become an affiliate member of NATO? I understand in times of war that's a requisite for us to be working with our allies against threats. I totally understand that, but there's a centralization that's happening. There's an aggregation of Western military forces into this control system where if UK and the US go into something, that's the rest of the Western world heading into that. So there's many more things we could talk about along those lines, Vinny. But really what we need to do is identify the most prescient threat and work to mitigate them. I don't want to sound like a prophet of doom and gloom, but there is no stopping what's coming. There is no stopping it unless everyone on this planet that is against it really does connect arms and deal with this. Can New Zealand do that? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We've now had 2 elections since 2020 where you and I worked so hard along with many, many people to create a fighting platform within Parliament so that we could fight this fight, but that hasn't happened. We didn't learn anything in the 2023 election. We had foolish people try and manipulate whole new movements instead of trying to consolidate what we already had, specifically talking about the whole Liz Gunn NZ Loyal Party, how Counterspin were behind that, how they were manipulating many of the vote, which turned off many of the vote, which increased the tension for people to find another viable alternative. So what did people do? They believed the silver fox, Winston Peters, and they gave their vote to him. And now many people that I know that are at least intellectually honest with themselves know that they are in big, big trouble in terms of being disappointed. And that's yeah, that's going to, that's going to happen. People just are still trying to defend Winston. The other day, I had a conversation with someone that voted for him, helped donate to him, and he's gutted. He's gutted, and I said to him, "Well, mate, I'm sorry, but I did tell you so." And so I haven't got much sympathy for those people who didn't listen to the advice certainly that I was giving them, because a leopard like him doesn't change his spots. They just don't, unless they've had the road to Damascus experience, and I didn't see any indication of that. And one big giveaway about where Winston is at is how he's never ever in a significant way distantiated himself from his actions in 2020 and 2021. He's never retracted statements he's made about people like me, who stood up in a political environment to defend our civil liberties in New Zealand and our national sovereignty. He hasn't retracted and apologised for those statements where he said, we're a bunch of a-holes who are tinfoil hat wearers and we need to be gone under a rock and never come out again. So he's never retracted those in a very meaningful public way that I'm aware of. And again, where is he in regards to the gene technology bill? Where is he in regards to explaining to people the threats and the risks associated with the WHO, the UN, and now the Global Pact that he allowed us to go in? Why isn't he talking about the absurd and dangerous, deadly behaviour of NATO, the UK, and the United States, which could lead us into war? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they stopping the genocide in Gaza? We're meant to be a fair dinkum, fair shake country. New Zealand government's already come out and said that that war needs to. They call it a war. It's not a war. They want the war to stop in Gaza, yet they're not willing to make any moves to actually help affect that type of outcome. So these are the things that concern me. The digital society that we're getting ready to go into, matched with the threat of nuclear war, matched with the climate change tyranny that's coming fast down the pipeline at us.
Right, with that said, Happy New Year, everybody. That's us for the day. I'm kidding, okay. It's just funny to me because you have these, what was it, Richard M. Hoth after 9/11 said that how you manipulate the public with fear is you have to create an aura of endless threat. All right, everything everywhere is going on all at once, and whichever way you pay attention to it, it seems that that's just the worse it gets. And you have these distractions that are happening, right? Okay, so Trump comes in, first time, everybody's like, he's going to save us. Then the lockdowns come in, which Trump supports. Then the vaccines come in, which Trump supports. And what were we talking about? Like 30 million Americans dead or something like that, something ridiculous. And all the voters who were up with the play, allegedly, at that point, still support this person who did that thing to them, right? Because he's now saying, again, what you want to hear. And the fires, for example, in Los Angeles. I don't know how many times this is that we've had fires in Los Angeles that have become huge frickin' international stories. I remember the fires in Australia as it's all this natural disaster kind of fluff. And it happens very, very commonly. Forest fires are an annual thing, except more to the fact that there used to be this thing called fire management, right? That used to happen where you'd go in and you'd burn off the undergrowth in between seasons to make sure you don't have huge forest fires. And so all this climate change legislation came in and says, oh, no, we want to stop doing that. And then these huge forest fires start up. Oh, my goodness. What a great way to distract everybody. What a great way to open the new year. And we're talking about the gene therapy bill here. What specifically is that concerning? Is that concerning the injectables? Is that concerning your food being modified? What specifically is the deal here with this one, Billy?
With the gene technology bill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, what they're saying is that within the the front text of the bill is that they want to be able to use drugs with gene therapy or gene technology in it to help protect people. Don't you love that word? To help protect people from any type of event where they deem it a pandemic, or they deem it a biological threat of some kind, that they can, through the Ministry of Health, issue orders where people have to take this, what they're prescribing as a mandatory drug to take. And unless you take that drug, you don't participate in society. That's now where you get that connection, of course, is when you read the pandemic response plan. It says very clearly that they have now changed the whole direction of response protocols and responses in this pandemic response plan that they've developed, and they have facilitated themselves where they will make mandatory the requirement for people to take these drugs on if they so deem it necessary. Now, the gene technology bill gives them that type of capability now, that they can blatantly use drugs that have that gene technology or gene therapy type aspect to them. Instead of hiding it, instead of being shifty about it, it's now in plain sight, and they're asking for legislative grunt to be able to issue these orders. Now, remembering that when they were delivering these orders under the COVID-19 Public Health Response Act, what they needed to do is, when they were issuing out orders from that, they had to gazette them, they had to come up with a justification and put it out that way. But in this, my understanding is, with this gene technology bill, they don't have to do any of that because it's already going to have legislative power in its own right. So they're not going to need to go through all the stuff. If they come up with some order that's additional to the powers that they have in that legislation, then they'll have to gazette it and do those sorts of things. But my understanding is, if they get their way with this gene technology bill, they won't need to do any of that. Now, if that assessment is wrong, we're still left with a basic threat position where they are looking for the legislative authority to be able to roll these drugs out carte blanche by law and make it mandatory. And so we're in big trouble with this bill. And where the hell is Winston Peters on it? Again, where is he? Where is he in regards to this thing? Why is he not on the steps of Parliament? Why is he not on the steps of the Parliament addressing this issue? Where is he?
Well, I was just wondering this as well. Where were all the politicians during the Wellington protest? Literally all of them, signed a little, I don't know, what would you call it? A confab, a covenant, to not come out and speak to the protesters, right? Like you've got more people that have ever been on Parliament lawn than maybe in recent history, and they're not leaving, and you won't even talk to them. That we had a succession here, Billy, where 1 year we had Jacinda Ardern come from absolute obscurity to now becoming Prime Minister, even though the majority of people actually voted not for change. Mm-hmm. Then the next election, when you came in, we had the highest voter turnout for a freedom-minded party ever, and then the party was destroyed and you were demonized, and then we got into lockdowns where you and I were arrested, banned from accessing the internet, right? So each of these things is actually teaching us something. Number one, with Jacinda coming in power, and first thing, that politics is completely manufactured. Number two, that when we came in to resist it, we found out that politics was controlled. Number three, we found out that the media will demonize anybody who's capable of leading the people into a brighter future. And number four, they will shut down any kind of protest activity that actually is in the people's best interest in some of the most brutal, suppressive ways conceived. After all those lessons should have been learned, then people start going protesting at Parliament, then people start their own political parties. And what happened to them?
Nothing. Look, you raise a really, really good point. You missed one jigsaw piece there as well. So you're absolutely right about Jacinda Ardern. So she was a junior MP in Labour. Next minute, she's Prime Minister. And that happened exactly the same way with Christopher Luxon. He went from being a junior new MP to being Prime Minister within 3 years. How does that happen? How does that happen?
Probably when you're best mates with John Key.
Well, when you're best mate. Well, I remember John Key said I'm sure it was around 2015, 2016, he stated clear as anything that Chris Luxon would become the National Party leader and he will be Prime Minister one day. He absolutely said that. I remember that as clear as I'm sitting here listening to you. But, all of those things you said are absolutely correct. And what we've seen, though, is the control of the judiciary and law enforcement system by these agenda that are in the minds of these whatever I don't know what you could call them really. Yes, they're parliamentarians, but what are they really underneath there? They are clearly working to a game plan. It doesn't matter whether they're in the left-leaning political party or the right-leaning political party. They are, the conductor may have changed, but the train is still going to the same destination. And that's what we're going to see. We are going to see this government get booted out in 26, and then it's going to be the Labour Party will come in and they will destroy the middle class, the wealthy elite. They'll just smile and wave and they'll continue on with life, but they are going to absolutely reduce everybody, just like Kamala Harris said. Bring everybody to the same starting point. That's communism 101. This is what the Labour government is going to do. This government that we got now, which is meant to be a conservative right-leaning party, it's not, and it is absolutely not a conservative right-leaning party. It is hard up against the left, the extremes of the left direction on the right side of the spectrum as you can get. It's like if you can imagine a kid with his face up against the window of the bus as it drives past. That's what the National Party is, how close they are to the left. And good analogy, by the way. Nothing has changed. The government has changed and nothing has changed. Winston Peters knows it. He got his wish. He got his third deputy prime ministership, or fourth go at Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade. He will fly for free forever. He'll have a significant pension. He'll retain a lot of the benefits that he already enjoys, if not officially, certainly unofficially. And these people just sail off in the distance, but they are taking us to the same spot. I mean, that famous photo of Christopher Luxon having lunch with Jacinda Ardern, and they're leaning into each other laughing. I mean, what can you say? I mean, even last night after my broadcast, I was looking at the Jimmy Carter funeral, and you've got Obama and you've got President Trump sitting side by side with each other, leaning into each other, laughing their heads off, getting on like a house on fire. And what does it tell us? They're all in a club, baby, and we're not in it. It's this political theatrics that they're going to jail him. No. For a minute,
it's theatre.
You're right, it's theatre. For a minute, I thought there might be a chance. It might be like that, but nah. No, he's I hate to say it, there's probably some people going, oh no, that Billy guy, but I hate to say it, but he's not good, Trump. I mean, look what he's got around him. He's built up his cabinet. They're either full-on Christian Zionists, or they are Catholic, one or the other. Tulsi Gabbard, she's a Hindu devotee, believe it or not, and along those lines. And so he's heavily controlled by two highly influential organizations, one being the Heritage Foundation, which is a Jesuit think tank and policy development think tank that influences governments in the United States. And the other organization is AIPAC, which is the Israel lobby in the United States. And that is not good. Whenever you have insidious partnerships that fund politicians and can influence their thinking, I think we're in big trouble. And I think that's what we saw in 2020 was Bill and Melinda Gates leaning on their relationship with Jacinda Ardern to do what she did in New Zealand. I think that's one part of it. And of course, what happened after she leaves office and Melinda Gates divorces Bill Gates? What does she do? She hands $30 million to Jacinda Ardern to spend on whatever she likes.
Yeah.
Fact.
She got herself a couple of handbags, apparently, and the... I'm joking. I'm not joking. I'm joking. And we had so many of these realizations that should have come to the public awareness. And this is what we talk about when we talk about 51% of the population believing something. This is what the Area 51 is actually connoting to. Once 51% of the population believes something, basically that's true. Now, do you think, ladies and gentlemen, that the broad populace is anywhere near 51% of people believing things that are true in a general way, or do you believe that it's far more significant in the other direction of people that really truly believe lies and deception and really get caught up in this rigmarole? People who love being told what they want to hear and don't ask for any evidence to back it up. Okay, look, hope is a good thing. I'm not saying it ain't, but uncritical positive thinking is not a good thing. Okay? It's a bad thing, because when a new president comes in that is telling you everything that you want to hear, then instead of fighting like hard as you possibly can to try and defend your liberties, to try and stand up for your sovereignty, both as a nation and as a human being, once that person gets elected, you just sort of sit back and you relax. And you think you've had some kind of victory. And during that period of you relaxing and not fighting for your liberty, even more liberties get taken, until the point where you might wake up in about maybe 3.5, maybe 4 years, and then start voting for the next person who tells you what you want to hear, so that you can just go back to relaxing again and having your liberties stripped.
It's 100% right. As long as people can turn over in bed at night without having to worry about things, they're going to swallow anything, right? Mm-hmm. And that is why, if you think about Reality Check Radio and the platform, why are they so popular? Why is RCR so popular? Why are they? It's not because they deal with the truth. It's not because they have penetrative, deep analysis in these issues. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with people think that their resistance effort is listening to those channels. That's the might and the sum of their resistance effort is that they listen to those channels and give them money. That's exactly what it is. Because to listen to you, yes, they get taken on a wild ride, but to listen to me, they get taken into deep analysis and consideration of where this is likely to be taking us, and to continually have to confront this reality, means you've really got to assess your own participation in it, and that may require discomfort. And because people don't like discomfort, what do? They ignore the reality and go to the next default fallback position where they feel like they're doing something. I mean, you look at these people that contribute to RCR. We all know Sean Plunkett is a shill. He was the rudest, one of the vilest legacy media people in 2020. What about Peter Williams? He was exactly the same in 2020 and 21. They both were. They both got past their expiry date at News Talk ZB, and they got fired. Next minute, they do a Winston Peters and apparently are the truth alternative. And in Peter Williams's case at RCR, now they're meant to be the champions of freedom media. And yet I've never ever heard from them, not once. Even when Rodney Hyde said that he wanted me on his show, that call never came. And the reason is the people that run RCR, the Claire Deeks, these women that were absolutely a huge nuisance in 2020. I know that because one of them was a candidate in my party, Claire Deeks, who I wanted to remove from the party about a month before the election, but she had put herself in a position of favour with Jamie Lee Ross. I wonder how she did that. I wonder how that came about. I wonder. But anyway, and next minute, Michael Kelly, who tried to say that I conned him out of $15,000 and lied about it, makes a complaint to the Electoral Commission. They try to say that I was guilty of dishonesty and deception. I go to court and I get acquitted for it. I got found innocent, not guilty, to the dismay of the prosecution, to the dismay of Michael Kelly, who funds RCR and Voices for Freedom. So I'm sorry, and what you get with RCR, look at who they've got in there. Which of those people in there, in that list of people, were there in 2020 and 2021? Where were they? They were blinking on the other side or nowhere to be seen.
I thought, what was his name? Russell Malcolm taught me something, is that if you're looking for a leader or somebody you can trust to be your commentator, etc., you need to be looking for people who have a track record of self-sacrifice for the good of others.
Here, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I've never seen any one of them on the front lines. None of them. I've never seen them literally go out of their way to put their bodies on the line like we did and others with us did, Vinny. Those people down that went to Wellington and put their bodies on the line down there. I didn't see Peter Williams down there, did you? Was he there? Did anyone see him there?
We weren't allowed to go there.
We weren't allowed to go there. No, that's right. We were forbidden to go there. I'll never forget the conversation I had with my lawyer. He said, Billy, you do what you want, but you are going to get into trouble for that. And so, again, we were these people in 2020 and 2021. Look, that's not to say that other people, couldn't come into the fold and do really, really good things. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm questioning the moral depth of these organisations just like RCR. Now, I remember the genesis of thinking that led to Voices for Freedom being launched, and it was all based on a commercial model that Michael Kelly developed with Jamie Lee Ross and with Claire Deeks, and Michael Kelly funded it. It wasn't based on the message. It wasn't based on the people. It was based on a commercial model where they could monetize the freedom movement, and they did that, and here we are today. And you have a limited, curated version of the truth going out from them every day, and then in another year from now, there will be another declaration. They've got to close up shop because they haven't got enough money, and they'll suck another 500,000 out of the freedom movement again. And that means people like you, people like me, and others don't get any taste of the public fund to help us broadcast these issues. I'm actually ready to stop broadcasting myself because it costs me money, and I really should be doing other things. If I can't provide and at least pay for my phone bill and my communications bill for doing broadcasting, if I can't do that and also put some food on the table, then something's really wrong. And it's two things are happening. Either I'm not relevant anymore and I can accept that, and the stuff that's number one, or number two, what I'm saying to people is no longer palatable. And I can absolutely say, hand on my heart, that 99.99% of my assessments are bang on, and that it's coming from a place of informed research when I make statements, when I do podcasts and broadcasts to make my point and get it across. And it's as deep as I can go in it to try and look around it, underneath it, on the side of it, above it, to find out what an issue really means to us. And that, again, requires immense courage for anyone to look into it. Because, frankly, what we're looking at is ugly without Jesus. For me, I can cope with it like I coped with sitting in a prison cell for a week as I dealt with my electoral charges. I can, there's a quote in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, I think it is, I can do all things through Christ Jesus, which strengtheneth me. That's how I'm able to do what I do. I don't know if I could do it without him and without having faith. I don't believe I could. But, I'm a strong person, I know I am, but not strong enough to have coped with what I've been through in the last 5 years. It's been, the more I think about reflect on 2020, what an outrageous thing to go through. Having millions of people go through my life, thousands of people relying on me, tens of thousands of them. It was an absolute mind-blowing experience, and you were there virtually all the way along.
It was a tough year, and I think I gained so much weight that year. Just the stress of not being able to cook healthy meals and everything, and also I went a bit nuts and made some very terrible choices in my life as a result of the trauma that I went through, and I've destroyed my own reputation in my own life, and I'm still haven't even put the pieces back together. It's like, yeah, man, trying to fight for the truth and trying to do the right things costs you quite significantly, and in ways that you can't really even understand, and until it's already happened, until it's already too late, and you spend the rest of your days maybe trying to put those pieces back together or whatever. And I think that the USS Liberty being attacked by Israel so many years ago, I was interviewing one of the survivors, and I became aware as he was telling me about the story of his comrades falling and then coming back to the United States to see that no investigation was being conducted. Nobody was saying, hey, Israel attacked one of our ships, we need to do something about this. There was nothing. And I realized something, that being attacked and having hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition and dozens of missiles fired at the ship, and seeing his friends get killed, that wasn't the traumatizing part. The traumatizing part was when he got home and his own government hung him out to dry. And that's what you and I have experienced from the New Zealand truth movement. We got attacked, and then when we came back to our people, expecting them to support us, they turned their backs and they had
fully.
plenty of other broadcasters now that they could rely on, that they could invest their hope in, and they tossed us to the side, and we may never come back to where we were.
Yeah, and look, and by the way, this is not for me, and I know you're the same way, Vinny. This is not us throwing our toys out of our cot. This is certainly not us being green-eyed monsters or anything like that. I had a lifetime of profile in 2020 and 21 that will do me for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. But what does sort of weigh on my heart now and then when I consider it is that I think to myself, the only reason I spoke up in 2020 and did everything that followed for the next 2 years was because of my love for people, really, and my love of freedom and the love of New Zealand that I thought we grew up with, and the loss of it, which was heartbreaking, and seeing really clearly what was happening and what I'd been talking about for a long time anyway in my own space. And I spoke up about it, and I did that, and I was talking about it with my wife Corinne the other week. We feel like we've gained far more than what we lost, but we've lost the absolute everything, from what we had, 5 and a bit years ago to where we are today. Financially, friendships and relationships that are gone, that we now know mustn't have been friendships and relationships. They must have been something shallow that we thought were that, because people abandoned me because I became this hot potato. I had musicians lie about me that absolutely flipping categorically lied, and they did it in such a way that that to those that knew the truth, saying, this. I'll give you one quick example. I did a international jazz and blues festival in Fiji for there for 4 years. Beautiful event, absolutely incredible music, incredible event. And the deal was with the New Zealand musicians is that we would fly them. They would come away for a weekend, do 2 sets a day, which is nothing for musicians, in 2 different places. They would do 2 sets a day. They get all the accommodation, their food, they'd have hospitality, get flown around everywhere, driven around everywhere, and have a great networking opportunity, meet other people from other countries, which everyone got a benefit out of. And the deal was, come and do that, and you would have a free weekend, and that's what you got paid, the experience. Now, let's contrast that with the Paihia Jazz and Blues Festival, where people go up there, they work 4 sets a day for $75 each a man for the entire weekend. They get put in, if you're lucky, good accommodation. If you're not so lucky, bad accommodation, and you've got to get yourself everywhere, and it's a complete rip-off. And nobody complains about that. So anyway, back to my event, everybody signed on for that, absolutely loved it. I had so many people apply for that, it was not even funny. And so 6 years later, 2020 comes along, and I had 3 musicians that were on that project, on that festival in 2014, and they felt like I'd ripped them off because they felt like 6 years later they should have been paid some money after they signed agreements and agreed to it, had an awesome time, loved it, and were absolutely happy about it, and all that. They turned that around. So again, and yet the great tragedy of it, I stood up and spoke for all of those people as well. All the ones that called me I was a dirty, grifting, conspiracy nut job and a, extreme right person and blah, blah, blah. Isn't it a laugh that now, because I want to stop the genocide in Gaza, that is now a space occupied by a lot of people on the left. They don't know what to say about that. I've had one tell me that they can't believe that that they're now looking at me in that light of solidarity, because it's never been about left or right. It's always about doing the right and seeing children and women and old men sniped burnt to death, starved to death, frozen to death by the Israeli Defense Force under a genocidalist such as Netanyahu, of course you got to speak up against that. But isn't it funny, now these people on the right saying that, what's wrong with you? To me, Brian Tamaki, a good example. Completely agree with him on the issue of rights and freedoms, but he's a big staunch advocate for Israel doing this operation. And I cannot believe any Christian can endorse that. No Christian who knows Jesus Christ and the Bible can justify that. This is absolute genocide when they're shooting little children in the head. And back to that USS Liberty, and the world doesn't know about that, the USS Liberty, how all those American sailors were purposely, strategically, tactically assassinated by Israeli jets and Israeli gunboats, naval boats, patrol boats that tried to sink the USS Liberty off the coast of Israel when it was in international waters, and the Americans themselves, Lyndon Johnson, I think it was, covered it up. They knew it. They were left out to dry as well, just like you and I. But hey, we're still here today.
Yeah, I think if we look at society and humanity and how it's progressed through the last thousands of years and so on and so forth, you realize that mankind hasn't actually changed that much. You can read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors, and you'll see that a lot of the things that he talks about very much apply to people in this day and age. We are still the same. Human beings have always been the same, and I don't think we ever really will change. And so the question is that whole old school kind of battle between good and evil. It's generally, if you're a member of the truth movement, sometimes you think that evil exists outside of yourself and outside of yourself only. But it doesn't. The weakness that we show, cowardice, ignorance, laziness, these things are things that we're all guilty of or have been guilty of from time to time, and maybe even yet still, because we haven't done the shadow work. We haven't looked within to see the darkness and to bring it out. That's why I make jokes. It's called making light for a reason, okay? Because in a world so full of darkness, what then must you do other than make light? This is how people get through that darkness into the light on the other side. It's a coping mechanism. And these coping mechanisms may be very, very essential, I think, for the keeping of morale. That's one of the most important things in any kind of war, is people having the will to fight, defeating defeatism. During World War I, on the wireless, the then radio, the most popular broadcasts that were coming out of the British Broadcasting Isles were comedies. Comedy and warfare. Right? Because if it's all doom and it's all gloom, people lose the will to fight. And maybe that's what happened when you and I were taken out of the picture to a large degree and we were replaced, I think, is that the people's will to fight largely got evaporated. Especially after that Wellington protest got shut down, the amount of people that I spoke to, like nowadays the word Wellington doesn't mean Wellington the city, the word Wellington means Wellington the protest. And there was a camaraderie, which I'm not a part of, because I wasn't allowed to be, right? These people were all together in unity at that stage in time. And then, after they came back, when all their illnesses started manifesting from all the weapons that got used on them, when all their partying and all their happiness and joy that they had at the time went away, they realized that they'd been defeated. And maybe they recognized that that was their one chance to have victory, and they fumbled the ball, just like you and I did when we got arrested, Billy. We didn't do our homework, we didn't do our training, we didn't know exactly what we were getting into, we were just trying to do the right thing. And we paid severely for it, and there will be consequences for a long time, psychologically, financially, whatever, for all of these people, including you and I, for some time to come. How do we rekindle that hopeful feeling? How do we rekindle the anger? Right? I think that people have forgotten the importance of anger, how important it is for your motivation. If you are upset with somebody or something, that is far, far greater than despair.
Well, I have to beg to differ there about one point there, is that I did do my preparation. I had spoken with the operations manager with the New Zealand Police. I did have security. I did have a traffic management plan for that event that we were arrested at. And there was a policeman that was meant to meet with me at the event before it started. He didn't appear, which should have been an omen, really, that I didn't consider. But he didn't appear like he was meant to. But no, I mean, I certainly was aware that arrest could be an option, a possibility for us. But you still live in hope that, surely they won't do that. But it shows you that they will do that, and the brutality about how they will go about to affect putting down resistance. And this is what I'm saying. What should have shocked all of New Zealand was the way that protest was closed down. That should have shocked every person in New Zealand, and it didn't. It did not. It absolutely, you had people on the left screaming celebrationary remarks, good job, you right-leaning freaking, tinfoil hat wearing, anti-Jacinderites. They loved it. They loved it. But with anything like that, though, they will be on the receiving end of it. They're lucky in New Zealand. They're not going to be. In America, Truss administration is going to war against anybody with a they-them signature block. They are going to go to war hard against the extreme left. They are going to do that, and they're going to make it very uncomfortable for anybody with blue hair that call themselves Chloe and they're a dude called Kevin. They're going to be going for them. Make no bones about that. Not in New Zealand, because we have a strong uni-party stance in regards to virtue signaling and wokeism, but make no bones about it. That's going to happen in the US, and that mood in the US, once it's underway, is going to permeate throughout all of the other the American-influenced countries like New Zealand, the UK, Australia. It's going to go throughout everywhere. But again, in New Zealand, it's all different. Okay, in the last few years, what have we got? Trudeau resigned last week. Biden's gone. Keir Starmer is going to be gone in the next election. Nothing surer than that. But in New Zealand, it's going to work. It's going to work different. This will be a one-term government. They will lose the 2026 October election, and then we'll have Marxism walk in the door again, and then we will be in big trouble.
Yeah, this is the way that works. We have a wonderful methodology here, ladies and gentlemen. Once you get the impression that the people that you've elected to power are no longer serving your interests, they will then replace them with somebody else you'll believe is serving your interests. All right? And then repeat. And then repeat. And then repeat. Why? Faith. Okay? It's a religion, ladies and gentlemen. Government. Coming from the Latin governe, which means to control, and mente, meaning the mind. Mind control. You are part, if you believe in the institution of government, part of a mind control religion. And that is how you keep the herd of cattle subdued, domesticated, incapable of original thought and resistance to tyranny, with the effervescent douchebaggery of government. Okay? It's responsible for most of the genocides that have occurred throughout history, have been committed by democratically elected government. The technical term for that is democide. Right? So, what we're faced here with is a predilection by the human race to want some kind of a leader. Now, this is a natural thing. All right? Everybody, and I know there's some anarchists out there, I don't want any leader. It's like, yes, you do. You just don't want a master. You just don't want a controller. You do want people to lead you, however. You do want people that you can have faith in. You do want people who have a proven track record of self-sacrifice for the good of others. Why? Because these people lift you up. They inspire you to be better. They give you hope that tomorrow won't just be dark clouds and thunderstorms, that maybe the sun will shine through those clouds and you will be able to pierce them to see the blue skies of tomorrow. That is why you need leaders, not masters. And until you come to that realization, until mankind, 51% of the human race, comes to that realization of the differential between having a master and having a leader, we're not going to really evolve past war and genocide and sabotage and conspiracy, okay? And we may not ever, because these things are the constant bane of mankind's existence. Every time we get to a point in some sort of society throughout the past that believes that they've eradicated these terrible parts of our human nature, it goes underground, it festers, and then it boils and pops out again. All right? We're just part of a cycle. It is said that good men create good times, and good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times, and hard times create good men. This is a cycle, ladies and gentlemen, a cycle that I would like to see broken. Will I see it in my lifetime? Will my children see it? Will their children see it? I don't know. All I know is that there's really only one job that we should be really busily concerning ourselves with at any point during the day or night, while we are awake or while we dream, regardless. And that is ending slavery. Slavery in and of itself, as in, bye-bye there, it's not happening anymore. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine securing a future in such a nature, in such a way, where the world no longer has masters, no longer has slaves. Only we don't see that happening any time soon. And so it can be very depressing. Yes, I know it can. I know that sometimes you lose your faith in people like me and people like Billy, but just don't lose faith in yourself. This is the thing. There's so many people in this movement who are so depressed that they become suicidal. The amount of people in this movement who should know better than to take their lives and their knowledge with them and their abilities away from the service of the human race voluntarily. right, kills me. It really is a sad thing. And that's why I keep doing this show, because people have told me that they were going to become one of those statistics until they found out that there was something much, much worse than their life. Vinny's jokes. All right, so thank you. Thank you, Billy, for your time today. Have you got one more hour, or can we end it there?
I'll tell you what I did want to say, because you just raised a really good point. Is that I have been since 2020, and it still remains with me today. I'm horrified by the lack of courage in New Zealanders. I'm horrified by the. I'm not talking about everybody that at least made a stance against the whole COVID issue, but where was the courage of New Zealanders to defend kids against being sexualized in some kinky, strange way by men who want to do burlesque, frickin' fairy tale reading and fishnet stockings and fake boobs and fake hair and big eyelashes to kids? Where was New Zealand defending children from that? Where was New Zealand in the Māori community stopping our babies from being murdered by people? Where was the courage of people to intervene? Where was the courage for people to pick up a phone and say to someone at the police station, hey, I think something's going on with my neighbour and their children, and I'm worried about it? Where is the courage of men to actually stand up and value what sort of lives their children are going to have by defending their freedom, and not only defending their freedom, but staying in their lives, even if they're not with mum, but staying in their lives to support these kids? But from the moral courage point of view, is that, you know, for where I see things now, you know, people are extremely, the men in New Zealand, you know, have no problem looking all fierce and doing a big freaking haka in front of the world, but they don't have the courage to defend those things that mean the most to our whānau, our children. And to me, seeing that hikoi for toitu te tiriti was was an absolute dichotomy in my mind, because you have these people that turned out in their absolute thousands to stand up for the treaty, yet sat on their hands and their lips while the treaty and everything it stood for was eradicated in 2020. And the same Te Pati Māori that talked about how what a terrible thing the treaty has been tinkered with, and yet they are the very ones enticing, coercing the Māori community to put their jab in their bodies and in the bodies of their karawa, their old people and their children. And yet very few people have the courage to speak up about these things. And that's what surprises me most about New Zealand. And that, if anything, that would break my heart, it's that. It's absolutely that. Because New Zealand is not the New Zealand I thought we were when I was growing up. We're not. And I think it's only going to get changed more and more into something we don't recognise, because of how fast people that aren't Kiwi, don't have Kiwi backgrounds, are entering into our country, which will change the wairua, the spirit of our country, slowly, imperceptibly maybe, but it will. And therefore we just become one of them, like any other country where life is cheap and your neighbours don't mean anything to you. And ultimately that's what the so-called insaniacs that want globalism. That's what they want around the world. And the sad thing is, New Zealand has put up a very, very, very poor fight against this happening. And I put it down to having moral courage to do the right thing in these ways. I just wanted to share that because it's something that's been pressing on my heart for a while. You call it the truth movement, the truth and freedom movement. It's not the truth movement anymore. It may have started out being that in 2020, and I believe it did, but it's abandoned the truth. It wants a version of the truth that is convenient to people. They want a version of the truth that means they don't have to change. Pure and simple. And if we can't look at, I don't want to sound like Michael Jackson here, but if we can't look at the man in the mirror and address those things that need changing so that we can have a better life, or if we can't look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing my best to protect New Zealand and my community, my whānau, if we can't say that, then we're missing something really, really poignant and really powerful in ourselves somewhere. And this is just an observation. I'm not judging anyone. Everyone's at different places in their lives. But New Zealand, I think, I do. I don't want to sound like the prophet of doom and gloom here, but I do think we've got big troubles ahead of us. I think there are some good people in the freedom movement still, I do, but I think there's a lot of people now that have somehow drunk some sort of hopium of fantasy that they think things are a certain way and they're just not. Again, how many people still defend Winston Peters? And our good friend Guy Hatchard is one of them. Guy's a wonderful person. I love him dearly. He's a friend, does great work to warn people what's going on. But he is a Winston Peters apologist. And that I can't understand at all. In any way, I can't. Same with Matt at NZDSOS, Matt Shelton. Same deal. He was a huge Winston apologist. Just leading up to the election, thinking that he was going to do this, and he hasn't done any of it. And I told Matt, but no, Matt went through the still after the election, went through the whole palaver of turning up with some sort of documents for Winston and Tanya Unkovich to virtue signaling, and then go and do nothing with. So again, we're either into the truth, or really we might as well just roll over and into the fetal position, suck our thumbs, and believe in the tooth fairy. And so I just want to encourage everyone, though, mitigation. We need to think about mitigation, about what's coming down the pipeline. We need to think about mitigation in terms of, do we want to go into this system? Do we want to be surveilled to heck? If we don't, then we better learn to prepare for not being able to buy or sell and participate in that system. And my big plea to anyone that may hear this message is, get out of the cities, get your kids out of the schools if you can, homeschool them, get your food sorted. If you can't get land on your own, work with other people. And if you can't, don't have any money, find people who are going into land and offer to be their gardener, whatever it takes. Get out of the cities and start shoring up your ability to survive without the system. And number one, and always number one, is Jesus. He's coming soon, and we all must reconcile our lives. Otherwise, we will be judged without a Saviour to protect us from the penalty of sin, which is death, eternal death. There is no hell. According to the Bible, there is no hell where God punishes a human soul forever. That's an invention of Catholicism. It's an invention of Greek mythology, of paganism, the Book of the Dead. That's got nothing to do with the Christian Bible, the old Christian Bible that I read. Hell is the grave. And so I want to encourage everybody to get to know these truths. And if they want to know more, please email me. You can go to Billy TK Facebook page, my email, billy@ibc.net.nz. You're welcome to reach out to me, join my Bible studies, and learn these things. I'm saying this to you too, mate. These things, these signs that we see every day around us, they're not by accident. They're purely by design. And we need to know what this means to us, not only now, but in the immediate future, and then the eternal future ahead of us. And so mitigation, family, if anything, mitigate. But I always say to people, no sense in being a prepper without God. All right, that's it for me, brother. I'm sorry.
Well, just to
there.
back you up there,
Yep.
just for a second on that, during the Vietnam War, there were a number of prisoners of war from the United States who were stuck in these Vietnamese prisoner of war camps. No hope of rescue, far beyond enemy lines. And the ones who survived that experience, however long it went on, overwhelmingly, the survival rate was much, much stronger for those who had a strong belief in God. Why? Because when they were trapped alone in that room with no hope of rescue, they weren't alone. And they weren't without hope. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Billy, for all of your continued work. He hasn't freaking he hasn't stopped yet. Not yet. Good on you, mate. Every day that we're still doing it, I want to give a shout out to DK, my wonderful mod in the chat room, and of course Ralphie, who also mods for me and helped to build my website, and Alan Mosdale as well. He's got his own show too, doesn't he? And Drake, of course, my wonderful mods. At thevinnieeastwoodshow.com, ladies and gentlemen. Bear in mind, this is a listener-supported broadcast, so it cannot go on without your continued support. So go to thevinnieeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead. Make my news. And go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, make a donation. Start up an automatic payment to give us a bit of support on a weekly or even a monthly basis, or even just a few dollars. It makes a hell of a lot of difference. And for those of you who want to support us on Patreon, I want to thank Hyro and Alan, and also we had one more wonderful person on that as well, who just became our third Patreon. So we're building it back up very, very slowly but surely. You can get all the episodes of the Vinny Eastwood Show there, and if you are a Patreon and you want us to interview a particular guest of some description, please let us know and we'll endeavour to get those people on the show. I'd like to also thank my sponsors, Reopen.nz, a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. So if you have a freedom business and you want to basically have like a list, be part of the list of people who own businesses in this country who aren't going to just roll over and play dead when the next crap hole up frickin' fest happens, go to reopen.nz, ladies and gentlemen, and sign up today. Pop your freedom business in there. As well as for those of you who are suffering the ill effects of the New World Order's many gametes. If that's even the appropriate word for it. I don't think it is, but I like it anyway. Gametes. Look it up. I'm telling me that because I don't know what it means. Of the New World Order that is messing with your health. And your health messes with your mind, and then your mind messes with your health again, and it's all entwined. Go to holdenhealthcare.com. That's emphasis on the care. David Holden told me that if you have a really bad health problem, it's usually just to do with all the things you are doing. All of the things that you are doing, ladies and gentlemen, have an effect on your body. And if you are willing to change, you will survive, or at least you'll have a chance. But if you're not willing to change, you are definitely going to die. Naturopathic care is the idea that the body has the ability to heal itself, provided it's gotten the right things going into it. And as a nutritional biochemist, he's also a specialist in hard-to-treat cases, our David Holden is. So go to holdenhealthcare.com, emphasis on the care, and check out Billy's documentary, the first one, River of Lies, New Zealand Scamdemic, an investigative documentary, is on YouTube. So check up River of Lies Episode 1, ladies and gentlemen. We're currently in the middle of editing and filming Episode 2, so we'll see you there when that gets out. And if you are a donor, if you are a mod, if you are sharing the shows, if you are giving us likes, if you are subscribing to anything like the YouTube, the Rumble, the Facebook, any of it, thank you. Thank you so much for helping the show get out there and helping it to continue this longevity streak that has been going despite the huge challenges and disadvantages that we've had. To which disadvantage am I referring? Being stuck in New Zealand. It's a remarkable disadvantage if you try to get into the international truth movement, I tell you what. But however, if you are donating, if you do believe in the Vinny Man, that even if he messes up, even if he does things that are wrong and things like that, that he's still a good person, he's still trying to do the right thing by it and make up for his petty mistakes and terrible decisions, please go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com and donate today. Do you want to have a private call with me? You're going through some stuff? Maybe you've got like a project or an idea or something. I can do practically anything. You got an idea for a script or something, but you don't know what the characters are going to be like or how the script ends up. You just got like an idea. Give me a ring. Okay? Once you donate, you'll be taken to the Vinny Eastwood Show secret donors page where you'll have access to me. All right, and the Secret Donors Club on Facebook as well, with all of the other wonderful people who support the broadcast there. And guys, thank you so much. And we are coming into the very first show of 2025 with a bunch of misery. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again sometime at the Vinny Eastwood Show.
Gentlemen, I brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem. It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood Show. The Vinny Eastwood Show. Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood Show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. You see, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our scumbaggery, which we call necessary. Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift, with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Vinny Eastwood? Absolutely, he's a major impediment to our planet. How are we going to get rid of him? We could poison his water supply. But we've done that already. Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we? But I am still glad, I mean, even if I am not really the overlord, and I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world, you know, penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yes, well, thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise, I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem is probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96, wasn't she?